Well, hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Straight Outta Prison podcast. My name is James K. Jones, and this is my story.
And this is Haley Jones, and this is his story that has now become a part of my story. Story. Well, I don't know why I said it like that.
Well, in the last two episodes, they were kind of sad. I mean...
They were very sad, actually.
Yeah, so I would...
As I laugh, that's how I diffuse sadness with humor and laughing.
I would like to say that this episode is going to be a little more upbeat, but this is kind of where the rubber met the end of the road for me as far as what I was doing. And
I can even hear it in your voice, like, wah, wah, wah.
I'm trying to find a way to tell the story in a life-giving way, because on this side of it, I'm not 9-10 years away from it now. It was part of my story, it's part of the process that I went through. But this was one of the hardest seasons of my life, and it was actually, for me, it was very comparable to being in prison, because it was a business failure, but it was more than just, I lost some money, made some mistakes in business. It was like a total public fail where everybody was watching me, and it was humiliating. And let's just tell the story.
That's hard. I mean, it's funny because when you say that it was a public failure and humiliating, it's not something I think about when I think about the Kairos thing. But when you say it like that, I can totally see how it was that.
I mean, I'm in the middle of, I'm doing Birmingham news articles, doing recipes, doing cooking segments on Fox 6. And it was just, it was tough. It was getting through it was actually, I said to myself later on, this is like coming out of prison, but it's a different kind of prison.
Yeah.
So, and I know other people have been through stuff like this. You go into something thinking it's going to be all rainbows and butterflies, and it ends up as not that. And for me, for years, I felt like, I don't even know where I got this from. It was I don't know if it's a fable or something about reaching for the brass ring or the golden ring. Like going for it. Mm-hmm. Like I went for it and I lost everything in the process.
Okay, so it is interesting because a lot of people do ask me about this. Either that knew Kairos or went to Kairos, like what happened? Or, when they learned that you even had a restaurant, didn't know, are like, well, then what happened? So what's the story of Kairos Gardendale?
So Kairos Kafe in Gardendale, we've already told the story how I got there.
Right.
We told the story about, it took us like 18 months to get open. Ended up spending about $378,000 just to get the doors open.
Lots of money.
Yes. And I mean, it was a crazy remodel, but, this was the thing. This was going to be my thing. Mm-hmm. And we opened the doors in April of 2012. It was about a month after my granny passed away.
Yeah.
So it was good for me to be busy and to be in that process. And the final push of getting open was just so much money and energy and time and effort. But I had so many people come alongside to help. We went through the process of hiring a stellar staff. I had great people. Everything was ready. We had the product. We had the name recognition. We had everything we needed. And when we opened, they had to call in the Gardendale police to direct traffic. So it was just a crazy day. It was a crazy day. That went on for about 6 weeks. I think I made over $100,000 my first month in business, which was...
You mean net?
No, just on
gross,
sales.
Yeah, okay.
But it was phenomenal because the highest I'd ever made in a year was only like $475 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just ready.
You were just blown away.
I'm blown away, ready to keep going. But in the middle of all that, I'm working 14, 15 hours a day.
Right.
I was only sleeping like 4 hours a night. Like, it was crazy.
But I guess on some level that was encouraging, knowing, because you knew how much money you had sunk into that building to get it started.
It was crazy.
It does feel like, thank God.
We're here.
Money's
we made
coming
it.
in, yeah.
We made it.
Right.
And then there was the element of I gotten away from Steve and all the stuff down there to be able to come and just be out on my own, doing my own thing.
Right.
And it was making money. We were rocking and rolling. And the future looked bright. I was busy and I was tired, but at the same time...
It was working.
It was good.
Yeah.
But then everything happened so fast. The quality of the food that we had for Kairos in Birmingham, we never were able to get there in Gardendale because It was just a constant flood of people. And for about 6 weeks, we were just
slammed
all the time. You know, the restaurant, catering, everything. And then somewhere during that process, I got really sick. Like my body just...
Your body just probably told you, like, okay, you need to rest.
Well, no, I had to... It was... I woke up one morning and I couldn't pull my head up off the pillow. It was crazy. I went to the doctor. I got in a situation where my body just didn't want to work anymore. And my doctors were telling me, you have to rest, like you're working too much. And I've always been able to push myself to the limit and beyond and keep going. By this time, I'm 39 years old. I'm getting close to, that age where they tell you're old.
Getting close to over the hill, yeah.
But we just were rocking and rolling. I had
Well, it's funny you say that your body started shutting down, because the first thing I think about is, yes, you had the Kairos stuff and you were not sleeping. I mean, constant. Mm-hmm. But you can't forget, too, that right before that, or even leading up to that, the trauma and the emotions of losing your granny.
Yeah.
I learned... So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I feel like I learned it. It's something I didn't know or realize, that when you are going through something that's very emotional or traumatizing, like losing someone, my mom or dad, like it's an emotion, it's a mental thing, but that also sucks out your like physical energy and it makes you tired in other ways. So you had that going on with your granny, leading into one of the biggest like physical, demanding, emotional, mental in every way. So I can see how you were just depleted.
And there was a lot that was going on during that time. I think I said this in the other episode that my dad wanted to come and work with us.
Yes.
And I didn't think it was a good idea, but he helped us do some of the remodeling. I'll paint for you, I'll do this, I'll do that. And he did help a lot. I mean, he did a lot of stuff, but I was always kind of keeping him at arm's length. But my granny was just so excited about him working with me. She thought it would be the thing that healed our relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I had that going on. But then the day that we opened, he turned into like some kind of dictator or something happened. Like he was just, I'm busy. Like I'm in the weeds in the kitchen just trying to keep up with the food. And I've got new people that I'm trying to train. And I've got 3 or 4 guys that I'd hired to be cooks that thought they were professional chefs that didn't know how to follow my recipes. So we're fighting and doing all the things back there in the kitchen. I got one guy trying to fry chicken and cornmeal because he thinks it tastes better. It's like, no, you follow my recipes. This is what we do. But we were in the midst of figuring that out. Denise was running the dining room, and my dad was trying to help out there. And he kept coming back there, bugging me and aggravating me. And, we need to have a bus cart, and we need to do this, we need to do that. I was like, stop bothering me. Talk to Denise. She's the one running the dining room. So I think it was the second day he came in with like this big industrial-looking bus cart that he got from Bresco, because his wife works for Bresco, so he can get restaurant supplies easily. Mm-hmm. And it was black and ugly, and he was going to roll it through the dining room. So I said, no, that's not the vibe that we're going for. Like, we're going for something a little more classy. We're not trying to do a cafeteria. I remember he got his feelings hurt about that and kind of said he was going to do it anyways. And I said, no, you're not. That's not what we do here. And I felt bad, like, I'm putting down on my dad, but he's like trying to push me like he's going to do what he wants to do. So I think it was the 3rd day that we were open, and we were packed. I mean, all day, every day. It was crazy time. But the wait would sometimes be two hours. And so they were trying to turn the tables. He was trying to help, but he hollered at a customer, and then made the little girl that was the hostess run out the back door crying. And Denise come back there and put her hands up like, what do you want me to do? I said, you treat him like you treat anybody else. Tell him to get out of here and don't come back. And so she had to go. I mean, I made her do it. I mean, you're the one that wanted to hire him. So now you figure it out. You talked me into getting him in here. Now he's here. Now somebody's got to deal with him.
What did he do to make the little girl cry?
He hollered at her or something, but he hollered at a customer, and the customer wanted to see me.
Oh.
You don't do that. I mean, but it was because he didn't understand the restaurant business. He thought he knew everything about everything. And he didn't. There's ways to do things and ways not to do things. And you can't run a restaurant where you have customers in a way that you might run a painting business that he was used to or working on the railroad.
Right.
So he come marching back there. I was busy. And he was like, "Thanks for nothing, Mr. Jones."
He said that to you?
Yeah. And I said, "Well, what do you want me to say?"
Wait, okay, so when he came back there and did that, obviously Denise told him something before that.
She told him he had to go. That he couldn't be
that he
there.
couldn't work there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can't have that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. No, you're not going to abuse my staff. You're not going to abuse my customers, even if you're my dad or my mom or anybody.
So Denise told him that he had to go. He couldn't work there. And that's when he marched back and told you, "Thanks for nothing, Mr. Jones."
Well, when he was marching back there, I was talking to somebody across the line. I said, "Man, I'm glad my granny went to heaven. This would be hard to deal with if she was still around." And I think he heard me say that. And "Thanks for nothing, Mr. Jones." So I was like, "What do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? I can't. Well,
and you got to remember, I mean, I'm like thinking too, like, and I know you like now, I didn't know you then, but if you were in the middle of like a very stressful situation trying to get food out and the dining room's still full. Yeah.
I don't have time for all that.
Right.
I don't have time to deal with all that. But I knew before we ever went into that situation that was not going to work out. Mm-hmm. And Steve, Jeremy, and Denise talked me into it. You know, he's a great guy. He's a hard worker. And he is a great guy and he is a hard worker. But the dynamic of him trying to work in my business at the age of 39, trying to connect with me all of a sudden after a lifetime of not connecting with me.
Well, and you're under like the heaviest stress probably you've ever been under. Yeah.
It was the worst time of my life as far as like pressure and, you know, just the financial piece.
Right.
Because we had did this deal where they would take a part of my credit cards and got a $100,000 loan. But they wanted me to be open for a month to see the sales before they would clear the loan. So I think it was the electrician and somebody that I got some equipment from, and then the guy that put in the hood. We had made the deal. Like, once I open, I have to put in a month before they'll give me the loan, then I'll pay you.
Right.
Well, like 2 weeks in, they were seeing how much business we were having. They were like coming in there, bothering me all the time. And the guy that put in the hood came in with like these two big guys like wanting to talk to me.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, "What are you going to beat me up? Is that what you're doing?" I mean, we had a deal. I have not been open a month. If you want to go in my office, I'll open up my account and let you see how much money we have in there.
Right.
But as soon as that loan clears the bank, I will pay you.
Yeah.
And I did. But it took a month for that to come through. I remember when that finally came through, I actually fell down on my knees. Like, I can't, because so many people were bothering me about, you know, "We need to get paid. You owe me $10,000. Like, I know. It was a very fun time. It was also a crazy time.
I'm like getting stressed just like hearing all that.
It was a lot.
A little bit of a side note. I remember coming in to eat at that time with my dad, actually. Mm-hmm. And your dad sat us.
Well, that had to be in the first 3 days.
Oh, really?
He only made it 3 days in.
And I remember, so Dad and I sat down, and I mean, he was very friendly, very nice, very a good face, I guess.
Yeah.
And Dad was like, "Oh, I feel like maybe he's connected. He feels like a little more invested than just a host."
Yeah.
And like he recognizing, you know, that he was.
And he was, like, the lead up to that, like, he painted everything for us because that was the business that he was in.
Right.
And I don't even think I bought paint. Like, he had paint left over that he mixed, that he used in the back because I needed the epoxy paint. And this was an old building that had to be completely remodeled. And he did put in the work. So, I mean, I had a lot of guilt about that, too.
It's just crazy. Think about that, though, that me and my dad, what month was this?
That we opened?
Yeah.
April.
So April.
Of 2012.
That me and my dad, like, came in. Your dad seated us. You were cooking, like, the four of us, just to know that, like, a few months later, my dad would be gone.
Yeah. Your
dad would not be working there. It was just, like, I don't know. It was just kind of a crazy thought to me.
It was a crazy time.
Okay, so you let your dad go. Hopefully that helped. What happened next? Or what was the next big thing? You're dealing with the money. No, just in general, Kairos Gardendale.
Well, we got the money stuff straightened out, and so now it's just rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when I processed my first payroll, because we did payroll every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was $22,000. And I was like, Lord, have mercy. I mean, I'd never even seen a number like that staggering as far as like.
That's what you were paying people.
That was my first payroll, was $22,000.
Yeah.
And that's not even the taxes I had to pay and all that stuff. So I was just like, wow, this is a machine, like a big deal, like trying to figure all this stuff out. But the people were very just excited to have us there. Business was booming. They were booking parties left and right. I mean, you were bringing your business people in there to do meetings in the party room, and it lasted about 6 weeks. And then all of a sudden, it was like the new wore off, and people started going back to Wendy's and Kentucky Fried Chicken.
So I'm going to ask you a hard question.
Yeah.
Do you think that the drop off had anything to do, or if there was any element of it that was either like quality or it wasn't good?
Yes.
Like, you do?
Yeah, the quality never got up to where it should have been.
Okay.
It was just too big, too fast, and it was too much to handle. And we were constantly trying and doing different things and trying different things. I had a guy that worked for me, Dave, that was managing the kitchen. He couldn't handle it, so I had to have a hard talk with him, let him go. I brought in a guy that said he was a professional chef. That was a disaster. I mean, he just wanted to wear a chef coat and walk around barking orders at people all the time. There were problems with the quality. The quality never got to where it should have been. People now, though, they say, oh, no, it was amazing. And I'm like, no, I know. It never, ever got to where it was supposed to be. But then there were problems in our systems. It was too big, too fast. We didn't have a computer. I didn't want to use a computer system because I didn't want to spend all that money, and I knew. But I think it was like 3 weeks in, my friend Tim Busby came in. He was like, I can put you together something. So he came in and put together a computer system for us, but then we started having problems with that. And it was just...
Gosh, it just sounds like chaotic.
It was. And there was one lady... I can't even remember where she worked. She worked somewhere in Gardendale. But she called me, and she's like, I was so excited about you coming here, and I've been trying to eat your food, but every time I come in there, they mess up my order. So...
That's hard to hear.
And then, you have one disgruntled customer, so I take them a gift certificate, take them some donuts, some chocolate crackle, whatever I need to do to try to make it better. But there was multiple things like that. To-go orders getting messed up. It was just... It was rough.
I mean, it's funny because, not funny, ironic. As much as you put into it time and money, it's like there were still so many other things that weren't ready. As far as what I hear you saying, you just no way you could be ready because of the sheer numbers coming in that you'd never dealt with. The staff, like you said, the kitchen people in the kitchen.
So we went from overnight. The way I figured it out later on, it's like you have a circle. My circle was 2 inches, and that was what I ran Kairos Kafe in Birmingham. And there were some holes in there, some things, especially in the financial part, that weren't, up to what they should have been.
Right.
But I went from, say, a 2-inch circle to a 2-foot circle overnight, and the little holes that were not that big a deal when I was just in Birmingham with a small operation.
Right.
When it became a big operation, those became huge holes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Definitely.
That was kind of the way I processed it later on. But by the summertime, I knew when we did our grand opening in June, and that was great and happy. We had a party, all the things. But I knew that we weren't making it.
In June?
Yeah, the numbers.
So only March, April, May, June, 4 months, you knew.
Yeah, when we did our grand opening, I think it was the first Saturday in June, I was like, this is stupid to be doing this grand opening because I feel like I know, and the numbers aren't adding up. The overhead is too high. The landlord there, oh my God, I can't even tell you some of the stuff I had to deal with them, like the lights up. Something happened where the sign went out, and then they said, we're not responsible for that. And it's like, yes, you are.
Yeah.
Back and forth. And then there was one Saturday we had parties booked where the air went out.
Oh, my gosh.
And they couldn't fix it till Monday. So it's and then I had this constant input from the community. You need to be open on Sundays. That's when we eat. We eat on Sundays. And I had to do like the Chick-fil-A stand. Like, no, I'm not going to be open on Sundays. That's when we rest and go to church.
Right.
So it was, by the time we got to June, I just had that, I knew.
Right.
This is not, it's not, things are not working out.
Yeah. I can feel so like heavy and tired almost for you knowing all these things, just like, I don't know, because it is a lot to deal with. I mean, the money part of it, the people part of it.
Yeah.
But also the like public opinion part of it.
Yeah.
And one thing you haven't even mentioned, which I know you carried heavily, was the investors from that community and feeling the weight of having to make this work. I mean, on top of the loans to be able to like pay back. I can see how it put you in a dark place. It
was rough, but we got through June. I always close the week of 4th of July. Mm-hmm. I learned that from Mr. Folletta when I worked for Leonardo's. It's like most people are out of town anyways, just close the whole week, let everybody have a vacation, refresh, pause.
Which, in that particular case, you especially needed that. I mean, I would feel everyone working there would have needed it too.
Well, I did that the whole time I had Kairos. Mm-hmm. I always closed the week of July the 4th.
Yeah.
It gave everybody a vacation. It gave just a break. Like you need a break.
It's funny because I know we talked about this in the episode where we talked about my dad, but I didn't realize you had your grand opening in June, and my dad went to heaven June 10th, and you did his memorial the middle of June.
Yeah.
So it's funny you were doing the food for that, but knowing it wasn't going to.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
stand the test of time.
I mean, I was trying to come up with, what can we do? The people in the community also wanted a buffet, and I was like, I don't do buffets. Buffets are gross. Like, I don't. But they were constantly pushing for a buffet and for me to be open on Sundays. That was the narrative. Like, you need to be open on Sundays. You need to do a buffet. So how I am. I dig my heels in. I'm not going to do all that. When we closed the week of July the 4th, I let everybody leave early. Mm-hmm. And there was one catering job that I had that Saturday that they prepped for me. It was ready. But I was going to go do that myself, come in, put it together. It wasn't that big. Deliver it, and then I was going to go to Phoenix City to see my family. Actually, I was going to go to Phoenix City to see my family. My Aunt Glennis they had a condo in Panama City that year, and she was worried about me. So I was going to go down there and spend a couple of days with them. I had like this nagging like depression because this was going to be my 40th birthday. Mm. And there was something that seemed so final about being 40. Mm-hmm. Am I ever going to have a wife? Am I ever going to have a family? It was depressing. And I remember going in that Saturday and prepping that catering job.
Was it on your birthday?
No, it was the day before.
The day before, okay. The day before your 40th birthday.
The day before my 40th birthday. And I'd had this, I think it was sometime during that week, I'd had this come to Jesus where I was sitting in my living room and I was like, obviously you don't want me to have a family. Obviously you don't want me to have a wife. Like, nothing seems to work out for me. And then, I had that weight from after the thing with Karina went sour. I remember one time Steve told me, wow, James, you've got like these 2 failed relationships behind you. Obviously, the problem is you, because, before you dated Shauna, I thought you knew how to treat a woman. Obviously, you don't.
That's annoying.
And, obviously, before we opened Kairos, I thought you knew how to run a business, but obviously you don't. And it was like, he took it back later on, but those things, once you say something like that to somebody, it sticks with you. So he was my pastor, he was my mentor, he was my business partner, all the things. So you start like taking that in and you start believing it. And I was just in a dark place. Like, I want a family and a wife more than I want anything. But I've got this business and it's taking all my life away from me. It's consuming me.
And you felt like at that point it was like crashing down on you.
It was failing and I knew it.
Yeah.
And I knew it because the numbers weren't adding up.
Right.
Nothing was adding up. We went too big, too fast. The overhead was, you don't even want to know what the water bill was, what the power bill. But I got to a place where I was like, I'm okay with that if that's what you want. I mean, I guess I'll figure it out. And then I remember saying, I just hate the thought of dying by myself. Like, being old and dying, who's going to be with me,
Bless.
But I mean, I had Kairos, I had relationships, I had Brandon, he was my son, even though he was getting ready to move to Florida, doing his own thing. But he was working with me in Gardendale. if it hadn't have been for him and Denise during that time, I don't think I would have made it through all that because they were with me the whole time. But then I came in to do that catering job on that Saturday, and I was struggling with being depressed, trying to like get out of my funk. And I bent down to the bottom of a cooler to pull out a pan, and my back went out. So I'm like doubled over in pain, like I can't straighten up. And it had only been like a month since the doctor told me, you got to rest. Like your body can't handle the stress that you're putting on it. And I just laid on the floor and cried. Like, what happened to me? Like, it was almost like being in the county jail. Like, what happened to me? How did I get here?
I've never heard this.
I don't know why I'm telling. I don't really want to tell. It's kind of humiliating. But I figured out I got myself in a place where I could get the...
You laid in the floor and cried?
I did. I was the only one in there. Nobody could see me.
I understand, yeah.
So I didn't have any shame. Nobody knew. But it was just like, what is happening? Like this whole thing is spun out of control. And, somewhere during this process, my brother got out of prison. During those months, I went over and spent the day with him in Atlanta. And then our relationship went sour after that. Like he was like, basically, make a long story short, he was trying to use me to get money and stuff out of me. And, I love you. I'm here for you, but nobody's going to use me. I mean, I know criminal thinking. I know all the things. And so that it went sour. So everything was just bad. But through all that, I wrote out a newsletter every week that I sent out through the email. And I told that story on the email.
The story of your brother or the story of you crying on the
floor? The story
of
me turning 40. And
okay, yeah.
But as I was writing, I wrote in there, but I still believe that there's somebody for me, and I still believe, and I did, but it was all by faith. And I came back from vacation. I had a good vacation. I got to spend time with my cousin Lisa, my Aunt Patsy, my mom down there. And then I spent 3 or 4 days in Panama City with Glennis and Dennis and Kinsey and Zachary. And it was good just to get away, but I knew I had to go back to, we got to figure this out. So when I got back, it was a constant like strategizing, trying to figure out, meeting with people, So when I got back, I had a meeting with, I had a board at Kairos, but I always said that was really Steve's board. It wasn't my board because it was like you had to have a board of directors or whatever.
Yeah.
And there were one or two that, actually one, Jerry Landis, I always felt like he was really for me. He was in my corner. He would give me good advice, but the rest of them were just saying whatever Steve wanted them to say. But I had a meeting with them and was just honest. Like, this ain't working out. This is not. And Steve wanted to have a prayer meeting, which I thought, okay, let's have a prayer meeting. So he asked me to invite everyone I knew to come and pray. So we had like a Saturday prayer meeting in there. But I felt like this is like shot in the dark, kind of, this is weird. Like, I don't like this.
Right.
And just kind of going through the process of figuring out what I can do. So I decided that maybe I needed to listen to the people in the community and do what they wanted me to do. So I took a credit card and ordered $10,000 worth of equipment to do a buffet, which was against everything I believed, everything I thought. And I decided to open on Sundays. And really, this was where, I want to say this was the last amount of respect that I have for Steve, but there would be something that happened after that. But it just baffled me that he agreed that I wouldn't come to church on Sundays to work. Just knowing like his theology and the way he did church and the way he'd always led me and the things that he'd always told me, being in church is important. You got to be connected and all that stuff. But it was because of money. It was because he had felt like at the time, it's because he had his name on the line or his signature on the line for some money. And that made it okay for me to do whatever, as long as we did the money thing. And then somewhere during that process, I started getting where I was just barely not making payroll, or I was having to hold the checks for 2 or 3 days to get the money in there. It was an awful time.
Yeah.
But I did everything that I felt like I was supposed to do. I don't feel like at the end of the day there was anything left that I could have did different. I called my investors in. I tried to get people to help me. I tried to get people to give input. The first Sunday we opened, I mean, we were packed. It was crazy. But it was just too late. It was too little, too late. And then doing the buffet thing, like that is, I mean, I guess you can make money doing stuff like that, but it was, that's not my style. That's not what I do.
Right.
I don't do buffets.
And it's funny because, like, we talk about this so much, and hindsight's 20/20. But I mean, you were in a desperate situation, grasping for straws. But it's like anytime you start trying to do something that it's not really what you know and what you're good at, but you're just desperate, it rarely works out.
Yeah, it was. It was a tough time. But in the middle of all this, I started doing all things. So now I'm working 7 days a week, pretty much, just trying to make it work. And it was depressing, and it was hard to find any hope in all that. This is so funny to say this, but Steve called me one day and said, Jesus told me I wasn't supposed to be involved in Kairos.
And when was this exactly? What month-ish? I mean...
It was probably August.
Okay.
It was towards the end.
Right.
And he said, Jesus told me I'm not supposed to be involved in Kairos. I never should have got involved in all this. And I was like, Jesus is telling you that now? Like, when I'm in the midst of the worst crisis that I've ever been in my life,
literally neck deep and
trying to figure it out, he's telling you that now? And then there was something about him saying that hurt my feelings, and I was like, I'm all alone. But it also gave me like a determination and a resolve to know that whatever's next, you're not going to be a part of it. Whatever's next for me, you won't ever get to speak into my life the way that you have before again. Like, it's over. This is done. Because it's one thing for you to say on the front end or the back end to do something different. But when you're in the middle of a crisis, to just quit like that.
Yeah.
And not just to quit, but to say that Jesus told you to quit.
Right.
Like, I can't respect that. I have no. Yeah. And it was, there was a lot of criticism coming at me from him. It was rough. Let's move on past the rough. Let's just get to the end of it.
Yeah.
Somewhere during the middle of that, after he told me that that Jesus told him that, I said, that's fine. Here's what I got to do. I got to find a business partner. I got to have somebody to help me. I can't do this. I'm drowning. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what I was thinking, but that was what I felt. I need a business partner.
Well, you knew you needed help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had somebody reach out to me. I can't even remember who it was. It was this group that reached out to me that they wanted to partner with me. And we set up a meeting. I don't know if Steve said that. I don't remember how that came about. But I remember they wanted to meet me at Kairos Kafe in Birmingham. I got in my truck, went down to meet them. When I got in there, I immediately recognized one of the ladies. She was like one of those, I need to be careful not to talk about people, but there are a lot of people in the restaurant business that run scams. Mm-hmm. Like, it is what it
corrupt.
is. Yeah, it is what it is. And I knew that I knew her, but I couldn't place where I knew her from. But like in the middle of the meeting, I remembered where I knew her from. And she was not the real deal. Like, she was always running a scam.
Where'd you know her from?
She tried to sell me some equipment one time.
Okay.
And let's don't get into that.
Okay.
But in the middle of all this, them wanting to partner with me, they had this wonder drug that they had come up with. And it was this powder that you put in your water and you stir it up and you drink it. And if you wait 5 minutes, you can eat anything you want and you don't have calories. So they wanted to partner with me and sell that through Kairos. So I just got up and left. I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing this. Is
right. So you got up and left.
I was just desperate. And I was ready to pack up my stuff and run away. Was where I was with that. I actually called my cousin Lisa in Phoenix City because I knew she had an extra bedroom. And I said, if I go bankrupt and I want to move out of Birmingham, can I stay with you for a little while? And she was like, JJ, you have to ask. And, of course you can. But I don't know if you remember this.
I do.
After that meeting, I was so frustrated and just like felt like my time had been wasted. It's like, what am I doing with my life? Like, this is... I got in my car. I was driving from Birmingham, the Birmingham Kairos, which is 6th Avenue South, to Gardendale, which is only like 4 exits. I'm on the highway on 65 heading up. And I was praying, and I said, Jesus, I need a partner. I need help. I need a partner. And I saw your face. It was weird. It's weird as especially now, like thinking about it now, I saw your face in front of me and I was like, oh, that's that girl.
That's that girl.
That's that girl that Denise is trying to tell me, but she's out of her league and I know her dad just died and all stuff. And I felt like he said, text her. And I was like, well, okay. But I felt like he said, get off the exit, pull over and text her because when you get back, you won't do it. But I thought it was a business thing because you were the business person. You were the Gardendale business boomer,
Which is kind of funny knowing, the story.
But from my perspective, you were running around with your clipboard. You had people following you around all over Birmingham, all over Gardendale. People were following Haley around. You're doing this. What was the thing you came up with, the breakfast on the go thing?
Yeah.
Like, you had like 50 businesses participating in that.
Well, yeah, I did have about 30, actually.
It was a lot.
Meditation.
It was,
yeah.
It was too much to count. Like, you had all these people from real estates, mortgages, everything. Everybody was following after Haley Hobart. And I didn't know you. Like, we'd had never had another conversation other than, casual. So I thought, maybe that's it. And so I texted you, but I don't remember what I said, but I was like, can we get together? You remember that?
Yeah, I do. I remember getting the text and it was just basically you saying that you were in a situation and you needed a business partner. You needed somebody that
had a business mind.
That knew things that you didn't know and you were cooking and you just needed help and you were praying and my face popped in your mind.
Did I tell you that?
Yes.
Oh,
well, but it was in terms of business and you said, and I just would you consider, partnering with me? I don't know what that looks like, but we could sit down and talk about it. But I just I need help. I feel like from everything I've heard, you're good at things that I'm not.
Yeah.
And it would be and I need help in my business.
I'm drowning. So we set up a meeting.
And I thought it was kind of strange. Well, I'll tell you my thought. Like when I read it, I was like, this is very random. That was my thought. This is very random. And I even at that point, my dad was in heaven. I lived with my mom.
Yeah.
And I told her about the text. I was like, it just seems a little weird. I don't know. He doesn't know me really. And she's like, well, just pray about it and see how you... And I did, and I really felt like at that time, or maybe, okay, pause. We came together. We had a meeting.
We had a dinner meeting.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do. But I remember thinking at the time, I'm not really... I don't feel like I'm supposed to, partner with him in Kairos. I just did not feel...
Yeah, but you didn't tell me that. I didn't know.
Right.
And I remember it was after we were closed and Brandon was going to serve us. And one of the girls that worked for me was like, she is so cute. You should date her. And I was like, this is a business meeting. I've learned my lesson about mixing business and pleasure. And so that I had no thoughts of that going in. And we sat down and we had dinner, but I found myself telling you my whole life story. Like I told you about my dad. I told you about going to Greece. And I was like, why am I telling her everything? But after that, I remember thinking, well, maybe I'm supposed to partner with somebody that has a business mind, just see where it goes. But then you emailed me you waited a couple of days, but you said, I just don't have peace. I'm not supposed to get involved. And I was like, well, then you're not supposed to get involved. And then that was the end of that for me. But then the Kairos Kafe in Birmingham was draining so much money because it wasn't making any money that I told Steve, if I get a business partner and somebody really looks at this, I'm probably going to have to close that Birmingham location and just focus on Gardendale. I remember he got so mad and was fussing and carrying on.
But at this point, he really doesn't have anything to say because he told you he was not supposed to be a part of it.
I was like, well, you said you quit. I mean, so if you want to quit, stay quit. Don't try to unquit. I mean, you can't quit and then still be able to have say.
Right.
So, long story short, I did everything I could to make it work up to the very end. Denise worked herself to death trying to make it work. I had people coming in looking at my books, people trying to help me, people telling me what to do. But it became clear that there was no way to keep going.
Is this hard for you to talk about?
I just don't know how to say it.
Okay, so once you were kind of knew, it became clear, we can't keep going.
Yeah.
What was your next step?
We got to Labor Day, and I remember...
Which is September, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to Labor Day, and I went to Phoenix City to go to my cousin Lisa's house to see about moving down there. I was just going to leave. Like, I'm out. I'm out. I can't stay here. I can't do this.
What I know about you now, like for you to be at the point of quitting.
Yeah.
I feel like that is one of your greatest strengths. I know I've said this before on this podcast, but is endurance. And so if you were there, I know that it was really bad.
It was bad.
Or that you were.
There was no
done.
It was crazy. But then that Saturday when I was down there, I got a call from Steve, and he was crying on the phone, just weeping. And just all the guilt, because he had his name on a lot of stuff. But he was like, what if I die? I'm going to be penniless, and they're going to take my house. I was like, you didn't sign anything with collateral.
So it was about him.
Yeah. And it was this guilt, and, and I remember just saying, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you.
It's interesting to me, though, that there was, I do get it. We're all self-consumed. I tend to be that way, too.
Yeah.
And especially when you're afraid and you feel like you're going to, but there was no thought to what it was doing to you and the bag you were left holding and what was going to happen to you.
Yeah, that didn't matter. I think you did care, but you start caring about your own stuff more.
Right.
And somewhere during that process, when I came back from Labor Day, I read some book that Sunday night about drawing a circle around your problems. And I was like, I'm just going to draw a circle around my problem and just go attack it. And I did. I gave it another gangster push. I remember that Monday when I was back, Jeremy came in that morning, and because he was running the Kairos in Birmingham and doing the catering deliveries, but we did all the work for him there. Like, we sent everything down there. And he came in, he was like, hey, I know I have stock in this business, but I need to make sure my name's not on anything. So I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, I'm just scared. Like, I don't want them coming after me. If we go on bankrupt and all this stuff, I need you to take my name off everything. And I said, you know what? I'll do that. No problem. But it was like they wanted to be in when I was winning, but if I was going through something, everybody wanted to be out.
Oh.
And that's
so hard.
It was painful, but at the same time, it just pissed me off. Just like, yeah, fine. Move on, nerd. Go back to delivering groceries. Do whatever you need to do. But Steve pulled up that evening and was he was wanting to go through the office and look for some kind of papers. And he just looked like such a defeated person. Like, he was scared. And, I felt like this is my doing because.
You felt like it was your doing?
Yeah. It was my business. He was my partner, but at the same time, I don't know. It was just the guilt and the shame and all things. And I just said, look, we're going to figure it out. We'll figure it out. I don't need you to help me. You can't help me with this anymore, but we're not going to go bankrupt. We're going to figure it out. And somewhere during that time, I was getting ready to go to sleep. And it's hard to say this, but I sincerely prayed. I just said, Jesus, if this is life, I don't want to be here no more. I know when I die, I'm going to heaven. So can you just take me out? There ain't nothing to be here for anymore. There's no reason. Like, I'm not helping anybody. I'm not making a difference. I'm making a disaster. I'm making a mess everywhere I go. I'm bringing shame upon myself and everybody I know. I just feel like it would be better not to be here anymore. And I don't say that as I had suicidal thoughts, because I would never try to hurt myself. But I was saying, hey, if you can take me out, if this can be my time, I'm ready to go. There's nothing for me here anymore. And I will never know if this was a dream or this really happened, but somewhere in the middle of the night, there was like this black darkness that covered me in my bed. And it scared me. And I heard Jesus. I couldn't see him, but he was speaking to me from behind the cloud. And he said, is this what you want? And I said, no. And he said, this is what you asked me for. And I said, no, this is not what I want. This is not what I want. And I woke up the next morning and just like, was that a dream or did that really happen? I don't know. But it's crazy to think now that in that little house where I prayed to die, that would be the house that I brought my wife home to. I brought Lula Mae there. I brought Judah and Royal there. And it's just crazy how God can turn things around if you trust him. But we got close to the end of October, And I was 2 months behind on my power bill, 2 months behind on my rent, 2 months behind on my water bill. The water people were calling me every day, telling me, I'm going to come cut your water off. And I didn't know what to do. I'd ran out of resources, and I wasn't going to beg people to help me. I wasn't, that's not in my, I just can't do that. I can't do that. So me and Denise are strategizing. We're the only ones left. Me, Denise, and Brandon, we're the only ones left trying to keep this thing together. And I remember I had a guy that was working with us. He said, gosh, it just seems like we get to the edge of the cliff every time, and we're looking over the cliff, and we're falling off the cliff, and then we don't fall off the cliff. And I was like, yeah, it's weird, ain't it? It was a weird time. And I felt like Jesus said, we're not going to quit till you say we're going to quit. And I said, but I can't, I can't quit. This is humiliating. This is public. And then I was like, this ain't even bad on me. This is bad on you, Jesus. This looks bad. This looks bad.
And bad for you, Jesus.
Like this kind of failed. But he said something to me. It was a Monday evening. He said, we're going to show them how to fail and not be a failure. And I was like, that don't even make no sense. Like, I don't even know what we're doing here. But I called Denise and I said, we're going to pull the plug. Tomorrow's going to be our last day. But we've got to get out of this place because I'm 2 months behind on the rent. And Breck and the evil landlord will do everything they can to harm me. So we're just going to tell everybody when they come in the morning. And I didn't have a big staff by that time. I only had like 8 people left. But they all cried, everybody. During lunch that day, the water company came to cut the water off.
Oh, wow.
And
that day,
Nancy, who I can't remember her last name, but she works for Buffalo Wild Wings now. You'd know if you saw her.
Yeah.
She said, please, sir, this is our last day. Please, just one more day. And but we did. We shut down after lunch that day, and we just packed up. They stayed and helped me pack up. And I remember Nancy, she was like, I can't take your granny's plates off the wall. You're going to have to do that. I can pack up everything else. But what took us 18 months to get in there, we had to pack up and get out in 8 hours. And it was me and Denise, all my staff, Brandon. We rented a truck, and there was somebody there that found me 3 or 4 guys I could hire to help us move stuff. And in the middle of all that, Breck came over for a visit.
Breck.
And I said, I don't want to talk to you. I don't have a word to say to you. Like, we'll deal with all this later, but we're getting our stuff and we're getting out of here. And that's what we did. Me and Brandon. I made Denise go home because I needed her to go to work in Birmingham the next day because we had catering jobs. But me and Brandon, we went and got the biggest metro moving truck you could get, and I didn't get everything out of there, but I got everything I could get out of there, and it was a sad. It was hard. I mean, the hardest thing wasn't the fail and the energy. It was knowing I still owed all the money, like all the things. I remember my friend Charlotte Guffin came by, and I said, go in there and get something out of there. Is there anything you want in there to remember us by? And she took some of the chairs or something, and I was packing up something. She said, James, I want you to know I've never been prouder of you than I am right now. I was like, what are you saying? Are you crazy? And she was like, no, this is you don't understand it now, you understand it later. Like, you're handling this the way you should. But it was rough. So me and Brandon, we finished up at about 3:00 in the morning, got everything unloaded. We took half the stuff to the garage in my house and half the stuff to Kairos in Birmingham. And I went home and went to sleep. Like, we'll figure this out. We'll wake up tomorrow. We'll figure it out. But I felt like Jesus said, I want you to focus on 3 things. So I was like, okay. And I wrote it down in my journal. I'm still trying. What can you learn from this? How can you be a blessing to other people? And don't quit. And that's all I need you to think about for the next little while. And I did. I think the thing I learned more than anything was that bigger is not always better. And in hindsight, I realized that I got caught up in the hype of that. I made bad decisions because I was in just the hype of all that.
Yeah.
And it was not wise. And I failed publicly. It was a lot of shame. That next week I had to go on Fox 6 and I was embarrassed to go in there but the crew at Fox 6 came to Kairos Kafe in Gardendale a lot. And I remember Janice Rogers, she just put her hand on my shoulder. She said, "Baby, you were a chain, but now you're just one again. And it's okay. It's okay." And my friend Tim Busby, he was like, "But James, now you live in Gardendale and we can hang out. You can just hang out with me. You don't have to work at night." So that was tough. Mm-hmm. So just for the record, the next episode is going to be better. But I think we're about to the end of this one. But I don't even know. The landlords came at me after that. And I had a friend, he was a Kairos ministry guy that was one of my customers in Birmingham, was a lawyer, Charlie Beavers. He was like, "Let me handle this for you." And then he wanted to do lawsuits against them because there was a lot of fraud and stuff they did with me. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to do all that. And, let's just figure out a way to settle it. So he just threatened them with the counter lawsuit. And that was the end of that. We moved on. But then I still had all the pieces of all the money and the finances and all that stuff to figure out. But here we go. Back to square one, but with an extra $400,000 debt to go with.
Well, I'm very proud of you for just being willing to share this because, I can feel the humiliation and just the difficulty. I guess I've experienced a little bit of that, even coming into the picture later and just personally. And it is hard. It is just and I don't think I realized even until this talk right now, how, which I totally get, how public it was with the Fox 6 and the news articles and I know Gardendale now better than I have ever known it, how everything's just out there and everybody's talking about everything. And
it was, I had taxes, my sales tax that I didn't pay the last 2 months. It was just piling up. I remember I had one lady, Sharon Denham, come in. She was a friend of mine that did prison ministry. She was like, "We got to figure out we don't want James to get a federal crime." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "You go to jail for not paying your taxes." I said, "Sharon, you go to jail for not reporting your taxes. You don't go to jail for not paying your tax. They'll take your stuff from you, but they ain't going. I'm not a criminal anymore. That's not on the table." But that was a lot to work through on the other side. But looking at it now, I know whatever arrogance and pride I had through that process was stripped from me. And that's the place that we all need to get if we want to really see something great happen.
Yeah.
So I can look back on it now and know that it was a good thing, but it was hard going through the process.
Yeah. Ooh. All right, guys. We can only go up from here.
It gets better. Here we go. Well, we'll see you next weekend. I'll tell you the story of my first date with Haley Ann Hobart.
All right. See you next week.
All righty.
Bye.
Well, hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Written and produced by the Team Jones Company.
Yours truly, James and Haley Jones.
If you like what you've heard, you can subscribe to all of our podcasts.
Download the Patreon app. You can get all of our content early and ad-free. Straight Out of Prison, The For Real, and Narrowing the Gap. There's a specialized feed there for all subscribers. You'll get downloads, updates, exclusive contents, live Q&As, and more.
Or head over to teamjones.co/podcast and click on the Become a Patron button.
And I'll also put that in the show notes.
Other ways you can support us is to like and share, leave a rating and review, and support our sponsors. They help us provide this platform for free.
Listen on Apple, Google, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.
And thank you again for being a part of our story.
Oh, I love that. anything out of these videos, please hit the like button, the subscribe. If you never want to miss a recipe or anything I do, hit the little bell and you'll get notifications.